YouTube friends, what's going on? David Lee back with a brand new video. Yes, a brand new video. Today we're talking about the best camera for you. Now in 2019, we're heading into February. There's been a lot of releases of new cameras. Sony a6400, the new Olympus OMD EM1X. I think I pronounced that right, or I said that right. New cameras coming out, right? Which camera is best for you? It's context, right? What is it that you do professionally or as a hobby? If you have money to spend as a hobby, I think it kind of goes into whatever it is that you want to shoot, right? Maybe you're doing weddings just for fun, right? I think with that said, you can use really any camera, whether that's the Canon 6D Mark II or a Sony a6500, a Canon 80D, right? It doesn't really matter. But what about you guys out there that are professional filmmakers, video production, content creators, right? This is what you make your money off of. Maybe you're supporting your family, you're supporting yourself like I am, right? What is it that you do? Do you do a lot of corporate talking head videos? Do you do a lot of branded content, a lot of slow motion content? Do you do maybe a lot of like stock footage, right? You're shooting in 6K or 8K. What is it that you do that makes you money? And I think that's the most important thing to ask, right? Let's take it into the context of my production companies. At David Lee Productions is everything for documentaries and short films and narratives. Legendary Media House is my kind of like my trophy winner, my money maker, right? It's everything from corporate videos to branded content to events, but mostly it's social media marketing. Content creation, right? So that's in the context of like creating corporate videos, and then from the corporate videos, we create social media ads, Instagram ads, Facebook ads, 60-second posts on Instagram for the client, 30-second posts for the client, Instagram story vertical ads, right? The whole 9 yards. So that being said, what camera works for me is the 1DX Mark II. The 1DX Mark II does everything I need as far as being able to record for relatively long durations, has a long battery life. I can use CF cards for anything 1080p related. I have the CFast cards for the 4K, the 4K 60p, and also the 120 frames per second. It gives me the opportunity to use amazing glass, right? Sigma glass, Tamron glass, Canon glass. It has an HDMI port so that I can put a small HD focus on top. Or any kind of monitor just to gauge exposure, have waveform tools, peaking tools. It's small enough where I can carry it around inside of a bag or inside of a Pelican case. It's fully weather sealed, which means if I'm doing anything like in the snow or in the rain or in intense heat, I know this thing's gonna work. With that being said, obviously there is a plethora of cameras that I can use and that I do use, right? There are certain times where for certain shoots, I rent cameras out. That could be a C300 Mark II, that could be an FS5, an FS7 Mark II, right? There's so many different cameras. It just really depends on what the client wants. In that regard, it doesn't make sense for me to like own, 5 cinema cameras, right? A la Philip Bloom or someone else, right? It's always nice. You can own different cameras, right? Because that way you don't have to rent them. And if they're fully paid off, then cool, right? Documentary shoot you're doing, FS7 Mark II, pick it up. Some really quick, low budget branded content stuff, 1DX Mark II, pick it up, we're good to go, right? But for you guys out there who maybe can only afford one single camera, what camera could that be? Creating a list of your top, your top 10 things. That's 10, right? Create a list of the top 10 types of work that you do, right? So let's just say you do 3 different things, right? You do corporate videos, you do live events, and you do I don't know. Let's just say you do like YouTube videos, right? Maybe someone hires you. If you go on like Craigslist or Indeed or Monster, you actually see a couple of people out there that are hiring like YouTube creators. So maybe you're one of those future creators that get hired. You get paid, right, to create YouTube content that's like this, right? Talking head videos. So maybe that's like the first requirement, right? Is know who you're shooting for, what you're shooting. Number 2, let's just say there's a requirement for 4K, right? So in today's day and age, there's a ton of cameras that shoot 4K, right? Sony, Panasonic, Fuji, Olympus, Canon, Nikon, right? Everyone shoots 4K these days, right? So you have a lot of things to choose from. Number 3 might be autofocus. Say you need a really, really reliable autofocusing system, right? That could be a Canon 80D, that could be a Canon EOS R, that could be a Sony a6500, Sony a7 Mark III. There's so many different cameras, right? You just need to find which one that works for you. Number four might be slow motion, right? I need to be able to at least shoot 1080p 60 frames per second, right? So then you go down your list. Okay, cool. There's like 8 cameras that shoot 1080p 60 frames per second. Which one works for me? Number 5 might be audio. I need to have at least a 3.5mm jack, and thankfully in today's day and age, even like the small cameras have at least a 3.5mm jack. Number 6 might be battery life, right? I need a camera that can at least last me 1 hour of recording time on a single battery. In my experience with like the Sony a6500, as great as the camera as it was, I no longer own that camera because I was sick and tired of carrying around like 8 batteries everywhere I went, right? Adding the battery grip was kind of nice, right? It gave it like a more professional feel to it. But again, I was carrying like 8 batteries around and just tired of it, right? Number 7, portability, right? You might be someone that doesn't like carrying around heavy cameras. Totally understand that, right? The more gear you have, sometimes the more cumbersome it is, right? You got to carry around a bunch of stuff. So what can give me autofocus, good battery life, 60 frames per second, 1080p, right? All those things that we just mentioned, that's small and compact, right? That could be maybe a Sony a7 Mark III. That could be the Canon EOS R, right? Let's see. That might even be like a small RX 100 Mark V. Number 8, reliability. I need a camera that's not gonna fail on me. I need something that can work every single day, 7 days a week, that's not gonna break down on me. For me, the Sony cameras have been mostly reliable, right? There was probably one instance where I had my Sony a7R Mark II, and for whatever reason, I kept having to turn it off and turn it back on because the Metabones adapter I had attached to it, it just wasn't recognizing the lens for whatever reason, right? And that was during a client shoot, so it was like, oh shit, I hope this thing turns back on like now. After a couple of tries, it did, right? So I was like, okay, cool. The Sony a6500, the only thing I had an issue with was overheating, but I was outside shooting in like, God, it must have been like 108 degrees. It was summer 2 years ago here in Southern California, and it was blistering hot. Both my Sony a7R Mark II and a6500 shut down after like 35 minutes. Thankfully, I had the 1DX Mark II, and that thing just kept running like a beast. Right, and number 9, right? That's number 8. I think number 9 might be image quality, right? For me, that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, I don't care how big the camera is, how small the camera is, if it doesn't have autofocus or if it doesn't have 4K, the image quality at the end of the day is the most important thing. So that is pretty much doing your research. That's going on YouTube, finding, I try not to encourage you guys to find like a camera review. Instead, look at what the filmmaker, the YouTuber, whoever the person is, right? Look at their actual work. Maybe they have it on their YouTube channel, maybe they have it on their website or their Vimeo channel. Look at the actual work that they're producing, that they're getting paid for, right? Maybe I'll save this for a later video, but if someone is giving you a review of a camera that says great image quality, right? And they show you a couple of images that they just shot randomly, right? And what I mean by that is like they go to a park, or they go to some public place, right? And they're just filming random things happening, right? They're not actually being paid to do it. They're not actually being entrusted by a client that's giving them like their hard-earned money and say, hey, we need some content, create some content for us. Here's some money, right? Look at the actual person's work to see the image quality. And then you can say, oh, wow, okay, this image looks pretty darn good. Or you can say, wow, this image looks like not that great. I don't want this camera, right? This is not the camera for me. And last but not least, number 10, I think is probably one of my, personally, probably like number Number 2 on my list of what camera, sorry about that. Oh, it's probably number 2 on the list of what camera works well for me. So just to give you guys an idea, like for me, number 1 is image quality, right? Hands down. Like I said, again, doesn't matter how big or small the camera is, image quality is number 1. Number 2 is low light performance. How well does my camera perform in low light? That's a topic in itself, but for me, I shoot a lot of documentary type filming. And in documentary scenarios, you don't have the luxury of lighting things, right? I love lighting things, right? It's one of my favorite things to do when I'm doing narrative work or a corporate film, branded content, right? I love being able to light and create mood and tone. But in documentaries, you don't have that luxury, like I said, right? So I need to be able to, digitally add light, right? With ISO, shooting at ISO 6400, 12,800, 10,000, right? It's not the most prettiest of images, but I have an image I can use to create a story. So number 10 for most of you will probably be like low light performance, right? How well does my how well does my camera perform in low light? For me, low light is, again, you need to be able to at least shoot ISO 6400 in a dock scenario because there's just no light coming in. If you aren't shooting in a lot of low light stuff, then maybe, ISO 800 is all you ever need, right? Things to consider. At the end of the day, what is the best camera for you? Hopefully you can create a list of your top 10 needs or necessities for your camera, and then do your research, right? There's plenty of videos out there. There's plenty of articles out there. You just gotta take the time to do the research to find the best camera that works for you. If you guys liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button down below. Would really appreciate it. If you want to continue this conversation outside of YouTube or on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Follow me on Instagram at David Lee. Send me a direct message. That way I can get back to you guys in a real-time form and have, like a flowing conversation with you guys. Subscribe to our YouTube channel just so you're notified of new content coming out in the future. And remember, friends, every day you have an opportunity to create your experience and to write and tell your own story. My name's David Lee, and I'm going to catch you guys in the next video.